Some of these cheating stories are just crazy, and this story goes to show you people will cheat anywhere they have the opportunity. My wife is 30 and I am 32. I work long hours as a driver for UPS to provide for my wife and I. Being gone so much takes a toll though. My wife is a bus driver who gets off earlier than I do in the evenings. Sometimes when I get home from work, exhausted from the day, she's not there. If I call her, she doesn't answer. She sometimes hangs out with coworkers after work, so I try not to worry. One night, she didn't arrive home until 3:19 a.m. I had tried calling her phone repeatedly with no answer. When she finally walked in the door, I was angry and confronted her about being out so late. We ended up in a heated argument, yelling at each other before going to bed furious and not speaking another word to each other. After that night, our once healthy sex life, which I had previously enjoyed, came to a screeching halt. I used to always say good morning and kiss her before I left for work. I completely stopped doing that out of spite and resentment for her late night absence. Even on the nights when I'd get home late from my UPS route, my wife would initiate intimacy as we reconnected at the end of long days apart. But her desire to be physically close vanished. She used to frequently text me cute little flirtatious messages during slow times on my delivery route. It was something I looked forward to, but now there were no daily check-ins or responses from her at all. My worry continued to grow. One afternoon, I got off work a few hours early. When I arrived home, as I opened the front door, I heard rustling sounds coming from our bedroom down the hall. I noticed the door was closed, which was unusual in the middle of the day. I slowly walked towards it and turned the handle. Pushing it open, I saw my wife standing there trying on some incredibly short and tight revealing new mini skirts. When she saw me, she gasped in surprise and quickly slammed the door shut in my face. She didn't want me to see her dressed like that. She used to always want my opinion on any kind of clothes she wore. I stood there stunned, realizing she actively didn't want me seeing her in those sensual outfits or caring about my opinion anymore. Her secretive behavior indicated that something deeper was going on, and something in our marriage was terribly wrong. Based on my own upbringing and the advice instilled in me by my father growing up, I knew better than to directly confront my wife without actual proof of any deception or wrongdoing taking place behind my back. Although extremely suspicious now, I had no access to view her cell phone calls, texts, or emails, and without hard evidence, I wasn't going to demand to see her private messages. However, one Saturday afternoon, when I was out grabbing lunch, I ran into a mutual acquaintance of ours who knows my wife well through work events. Right there in the school bus parking lot, he revealed to me that earlier that week, when he was picking up his son from the elementary school, he just happened to witness through the chain link fence my wife being overly and obviously flirtatious with a man he didn't recognize. He said they were going at it, his hands all over her, and she was grabbing him as well. He remembered she kept looking around in every direction to see if anyone was watching them interact. My friend admitted he felt terrible now that he failed even to consider taking photos with his phone of her behavior, assuming I must have already known. While appreciative of him telling me, I was completely crushed by what he recounted observing. My rising fears now turned to sobering suspicions. I decided to take some time off work. I secretly began routinely staking out the school district's main bus parking lot and maintenance facility early in the mornings when drivers prepare buses for their routes, and then again in the afternoons when they park after dropping kids off. I knew my wife's general schedule, that as a driver she had to be there at some point. For almost a week, I conducted covert surveillance for any signs of suspicious activity on her part. After 72 excruciating hours crouched behind the same overgrown bushes and seeing no obvious evidence, I abandoned my amateur investigation. Between the long UPS shifts and now this, I was mentally and physically exhausted, trying to uncover the truth about my wife's faithfulness. In desperate need of real answers, I placed a call to a local divorce attorney to have a free initial consultation about beginning the first steps of proceeding with potentially dissolving our crumbling marriage. I then hired a private investigator whose ad I found online that specializes in cases exactly like mine, a spouse potentially cheating. Having a decent amount of money saved up over the years from being so dedicated to UPS, I was fully prepared and willing to pay whatever cost was needed to finally get the concrete proof of what my wife was really doing when I wasn't around. A couple of weeks later, when the lead investigator called me with an update, he affirmed that my fears were, unfortunately, valid. Through photographic and video surveillance he conducted, she had been cheating on me with not just one other man, but 2 different guys she worked with. Even worse, he discovered explicit evidence documenting multiple occasions she engaged in sexual activities with them inside her parked school bus after parking it alone behind one of the remote, unused athletic fields where no one could see. Armed with the investigator's damning report, one day I decided to fake leaving for work as normal after she had already left before dawn. Instead of going to UPS though, I stayed behind to actively start separation proceedings. While she was gone, I thoroughly scoured our small rented house, gathering up all her possessions. I packed everything into bags and boxes. Loading up my truck, I transported them 20 minutes away to her elderly mother's house, whom my wife had always been very close with. Her mom was confused when I showed up unexpectedly at her back door with everything, but understood once I revealed why I had to do this for both our sakes. When I described the evidence against her daughter, I then returned to the house and quickly had all the locks changed by a locksmith so my cheating wife could never return. Late that night, just before midnight, as I sat waiting in the dark living room, I saw headlights pull up outside. My wife arrived home, unaware of what awaited her. When she walked up to the front door, now confused about why her house key suddenly didn't work anymore, I flipped the porch light on and opened the door. There she stood with a shocked look on her face as I told her bluntly to go stay elsewhere. All her belongings were already secured at her mom's place across town. We immediately got into nasty shouting match right there on the front steps in full view of nosy neighbors emerging from their houses due to the loud commotion. Eventually, police arrived to intervene when someone called the police about our public domestic dispute. The officers informed me that legally I had no authority to lock her out of the marital home. However, by her own choosing, she declined to come back into our home upon realizing what I had discovered about her rampant cheating with multiple men from work. First thing the following week, I had my attorney promptly file the petition for divorce, citing my wife's clearly documented adultery as the cause for our irreparable split. She since moved herself temporarily into her sister's crowded apartment across town instead of her mom's. The process server successfully caught her 2 days later at her sister's place to formally serve her papers. Her face apparently went ghost white when she realized her web of lies had unraveled completely by me hiring that investigator. She didn't even bother hiring her own attorney for the brief divorce hearing we ended up having 53 days later. Without hesitation, the judge granted the divorce. My wife sat there silently the entire time, staring at the floor and not even attempting to refute any of the evidence I had acquired against her. The 1-hour hearing concluded with me being legally awarded our rental house that I could now manage financially solo, in addition to 50% of our joint savings. My divorce attorney, Nade, remarks afterward about how painless and quick the proceeding was, all thanks to the proof that the detective uncovered, which ensured she didn't contest anything. Following the court granting our divorce decree, I received a certified copy of it in the mail. A few weeks later, I took extreme satisfaction knowing I held all the cards against my ex-wife for how deeply she wounded me. When I returned home from work the next day, I noticed the remaining box of her miscellaneous stuff I had set out on the porch was already gone. She stopped by to get it while I was out after seeing me post the final picture frames and bedside lamps on a neighborhood buy and sell page. I made sure to remove or defriend her from all social media. Through calls and texts, I also took time to inform both our close family and common friends about precisely why I had to make the difficult choice to abruptly end the marriage upon learning of her sleeping with 2 other men behind my back. No one was left unaware of the humiliation she brought upon herself for breaking our sacred vows. After exposing her deplorable actions to everyone, I began focusing on my healing process and moving forward with my life on my terms. Well, in my opinion, the best thing you can do when someone displays this type of behavior is get out or make preparations to get out. If you decide to reconcile, I would still call a divorce attorney to see what divorce would look like for you, and your spouse is going to have to give up some privacy. If they balk at any of your demands or boundaries, maybe you should call that lawyer and follow through. Remember, folks, the most precious commodity we have is time. Thanks for watching.